Engine started.
Hello, we are live. Wonderful. So, let's see what happens on YouTube. The crowd is ready. 17 people online. Oh my
Hello,
god, this
everyone.
delay kills me. Now it starts. Okay, Alfred, speak.
Hello, this is a test. Let's listen to the audio in full explosion mode. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Mario, speak.
Hello, I'm speaking. I'm also holding a cat. So it's always good.
Okay. Kinda good. Ellen, last one.
Okay, I'll try and think of something to say.
Super. We are ready. So, okay. Then, short silence. Hello, welcome everyone to the Ubuntu Touch Q&A 119. We missed the round number 120 by just one, but that doesn't matter. We are still excited to have a special edition today. As usual, we are talking about the development and the progress of Ubuntu Touch, our mobile operating system. And joining me this week specifically are the people around my face on that screen. That's Alfred.
Hello.
Marius.
Hello.
And Ellen Griffiths by Canonical.
Hello.
Applause. Thanks for joining us this week. It's a real honor to have you again on that stream. We had you already, I think it's already 2 years ago or so, or even longer. I don't remember.
I think it was March last year.
It was last year? I'm not sure, honestly. Was it during Corona times? I cannot tell any time anymore. Days are weeks, are months, it's all the same. So, and also Marius, happy to see you, or that we can be in the same Q&A again. That wasn't the case for a long time now, I think. We just missed each other every time. Very good.
Good to be back.
So, this edition specifically is about Mir on desktop. That's Ellen's side specifically, and Marius talking a little bit about Lumiri on the phone and where those things are still kind of overlapping or meeting each other. I don't know how to say. And so we also put out that in our announcement already, and we asked for questions around the topics. So we have some questions upcoming later. And we have a small section of news and general talk about the operating system before we start talking about those specific topics, I would say. So if you agree, we just kick it off very quickly with the news section. And there I have two announcements. So the first one is a very general announcement that was asked by our development group to be made today. Starting with the 11th of July, all the contributions in PRs and MRs towards the Xenial 1604 version of the operating system can only be accepted if there is already a version for Focal 2042. That means basically you have to implement whatever you want to contribute now on two branches, and it should be the policy to have Focal first and then Xenial second in those PRs. Ideally, if you have a repo that's quite compatible with both, you have to do only one, of course. But if there is something specific that you have differences, divergences between, you will see that there is a main branch. The main branch is the one that is targeted towards Focal, and you have to do your contribution on that one. And if that gets accepted, you have to make a small backport on the usually called ubports/Xenial branch in the GitLab repositories. The same goes for the core apps. They have now also a main and a ubports Xenial branch that has been changed last week, and I'm just repeating for anyone contributing to core apps or app maintainers. please verify that you are still contributing to the right branch, and don't push back the Xenial branch. We will have to remove it again. Yeah, so that's an announcement a technical announcement for our contributors. If there anyone is listening, I don't know, hopefully. Furthermore, 1604, we have an OTA coming next week on Tuesday. OTA 23 is coming with a small delay because we were still looking into something with the messaging app. Be excited about cool features. More on that you can see on our forum and our social media when it comes around. We will also have a blog post again with the details of what's being new. I don't want to waste time with that now because we want to save time for our special edition quite. 2004. Alfred, Marius, who wants to go?
I would like to start here.
Yeah, sure.
I'm a little faster than Marius here. So there is ongoing work around making clickable Docker images available to app developers specifically who want to contribute to the focal app development side of things. There are still little technical issues of having some packages, and Marius is actually the more appropriate person to ask here. I think it's libsamba client that is having. Yes, I got it right.
Like cross build.
Exactly, right. There's still ongoing question about having that included or not, and this is making it a little hard, but the plan is to have clickable Docker images available as soon as possible. The second thing is more and more system applications are actually getting adapted to Focal, specifically things like the calendar, the file manager, the gallery, and many other applications are getting the Focal treatment now. So moving them over from the Ubuntu toolkits to Lumiri UI toolkits, making sure that they work. Some of them are more easily buildable as Debian packages, like in the PDK, for example. And there is a way to get applications running right now without having the clickable Docker images ready and available for others to use. So it is getting very close to have, a little bit more than just, how many applications are those? 7. Looking a little empty right now, but it's going to get much better over time, and I really like to see the changes there. There are also refinements all around the place, things like multiple SSH sessions staying intact, like little refinements here and there that make it possible not only for users to enjoy the system that we like, but also for developers and porters to make the system more reliable and do what you expect from it. So this is going somewhere, and I like to, get hyped over those types of things. I want to spread the hype. It's looking really good right now. Just judging from the second Pixel 3a that I have here for Focal development, it actually looks like the applications are launching much faster now than they used to on Xenial, due to certain differences, having systemd running instead of Upstart and things like that manage the application side of things. I think you're going to like this. That's basically it for 2004 here.
Super. Thanks. Any comments on that already? Well, let's see later. Laboratory experiments you wrote down also. What's that?
Yes, I actually started work on something that is not part of Ubuntu Touch in that sense, but is used by many people. Many users are relying on this thing, and that is Waydroid. The Waydroid story has been very interesting because we didn't think that using Android applications in this way would be possible, like years ago. We had Anbox. We knew that Anbox worked to a certain extent, but Waydroid is changing this up really quickly, and my goal is to, as soon as possible, not giving any ETAs right now, but my goal is to get Waydroid multi-window support into the system and get it integrated properly enough so that every application got its own window, so that you can actually launch the applications from within the drawer that you're used to, without Waydroid applications being stuck in one single window.
Ship it.
No, no, it's crashy, and there's a good reason that I have not pulled the trigger on that one as quickly as I hoped. But this is because this is actually across multiple components that Ubuntu Touch builds on, and that is a QtMeer, the Waydroid launcher, the Waydroid hardware composer, and eventually, actually, there are some things queued up or talked about at least around Mir that are very helpful in making sure that surfaces are stacked properly on top of each other in the right order, so that when you press the little face in, dare I say it, Google Play Store, for example, that actually the right window pops up above it. It is very interesting to play around with things like Mir and those things. It's something new. It's different, new, but it's also very satisfying. So I like doing this and this little adventure here. There is also a little bit of work regarding applications for Xenial, and that is GTK on Wayland on Xenial. So I am actually doing some laboratory experiments and actually trying to release as soon as possible VS Codium, which is using in your GTK version that is built from source instead of relying on the one from the Xenial archive. And this turns out to be the first GTK3 application, well, not completely, it's actually Electron plus GTK3, that lands in the open store, or is supposed to land in the open store as soon as possible. And I hope this shows people as an example how to, get a GTK3 application packaged up for the platform that we like. That's basically the laboratory adventures of the last 2 weeks in a nutshell.
Thanks. Alfred is again all over the place. It's unbelievable. Fixing Evercast on one day, next day already fixing Waydroid for everyone. So this is a lot of good stuff coming our ways here. It's very impressive, and thanks for your time and dedication. That is something that surely goes over the expectations or over the usual average. What
Go and
would
go,
happen.
Alfred, please.
Thank you.
Super. So we are through with our list basically. So let's jump right into that. What we already announced, what we want to talk about. Alan, should you just take the stage and you start talking in a casual way with us, maybe asking a few questions in between. Also the people from the live stream, of course, you can also ask questions. Just post it there on the YouTube comment and we will see it here and we can also talk about those. Great.
Okay, so people in this session, and hopefully some of the audience, are aware that Mir is a set of libraries to make it easy to build a variety of compositors. And it started off with its own way of communicating with clients and has now migrated to Wayland, which is becoming the Linux standard. That means that we can build a whole variety of things with Mir, and the original intention was to build Unity 8 for phone, tablets, desktops, across that range. that went its own way and became Lumiri as part of Ubuntu Touch. And we were left with some other use cases, primarily on Internet of Things in the form of what's currently Ubuntu Frame. But that's a very simple case of typically a single application on a single screen. But all the capabilities that we're developing for that are also available to build things on desktop. So as a proof of concept, I created something called EGMDE, which is a very simple Bitmere-based desktop shell. Have it running here. Probably not very visible on this because there's light in the way, but it's usable. It's not as sophisticated as your normal desktop, but it's quite usable for as a daily driver. And I have great hopes that people involved in the Ubuntu Touch project can push Lumiri forward as a much more sophisticated desktop based on Mir. That's probably all the intro. Don't think I've seen any questions, but I haven't checked the YouTube channel.
Yeah, currently no specific questions around that, except that will you port to my device X? No, we will not port to any device just so, yeah. There was one other question, but we can talk about this later. There are some questions from the forum where we can hook in immediately, and you both of you can decide if it's more fitting the, let's say, the Mir space or the UT space. For example, the first one that is maybe also worth to talk about a little bit longer is, are we going to see the multi-monitor support anytime soon? Kugi, thanks for that question. Staged mode on the phone while windowed mode on the external monitor. I think these are two questions in one, but let's talk about this one by one.
I can take this one, since I think this is more Lumir specific, because Mir already handles this pretty well. Mir already has support for this beyond. It even has off-screen render and everything. So I think this is more specific for Lumiri. That's why I'm going that route. So this is a two-split question. I will start with the multi-monitor support. And the funny thing is that when you upgrade to Focal, you will automatically get multi-window support, since that version of Lumiri already has the workspace support and multi-window support already included in the source. This is something that was halfway done by Canonical, and then I continued it. So now you can plug in an external monitor. Now I'm talking desktop mode. You can plug in an external monitor and move windows across. The original idea by Canonical was actually to manually select where to put the windows, but that idea no one understood how that worked. So I reverted back to more of a standard move window across solution. So yes, but again, this is not very well tested, not very well drived in the real world. It is buggy, crashy, but surprisingly functional for 5 minutes. But on the other question, this is a trickier question. Currently, no, there's no support for such thing to having both a window and stage mode, because that would be. I think that's where the idea of actually selecting where windows can be. That's why I also left that in the source tree, so you can select where stuff will be at the same time as also moving across the window. So how it's set up in the newer version of Lumiri is that on each monitor it spawns its own shell, QML shell. So in theory, it is possible to do this. In reality, it doesn't support that yet. It will need some modifications to actually be able to do that. But the scaffolding is set up to do that. So you can run both window mode and external mode, but you need to hard code it for now.
Some question from my side, maybe. Would it be possible to completely turn off the phone screen in such a case when I have now, let's say we have multi-monitor, we have a huge desktop here, like myself, I have two screens here, I would work on the phone, but I wouldn't use it as a touchpad and wouldn't use the on-screen keyboard. I would maybe only use this when I'm doing a live presentation where I'm in a conference room and where I don't have any other equipment. But when I have my Bluetooth mouse and keyboard here, then literally the phone screen is on all the time or so, and I wouldn't like that. Is that an option that we could have to say, okay, that part goes to sleep, but we are fully external only?
I mean, currently there is, again, no support for it now, but again, the scaffolding for doing that is there already because we have this virtual touchpad. In theory, we could just have an option to just turn off that virtual touchpad, and what you are talking about will already be achieved. But there's no configuration to do that. There is no real configuration option to decide these things yet. Of course, there are configuration in Mirror, but that doesn't say anything about staged or not staged, or about that screen or that screen. So, but we need a better configuration system, basically.
This is also true in Mir. We've got a very static configuration system as it stands at the moment, and we do want to make it much more dynamic. One particular case that bugs me is if I plug in my large external monitors and close the laptop lid, Mir doesn't realize that it isn't supposed to be using the laptop screen.
Right.
Exactly, yeah, these things. Docking a keyboard automatically goes to windowed mode. Is this something that works on the current setup already, Alfred, with your pad experience?
Excuse me, could you repeat that?
When you just connect the keyboard and a mouse, would it go then automatically to windowed mode, or you have to do anything about it?
In theory, yes, especially with the Jingpad, which is a tablet that can used in desktop mode as well with an accessory that actually turns automatically into windowed mode, depending on it noticing that there is a keyboard and a mouse or not.
That feeling when you plugged in a tablet into a keyboard and it just magically transforms is quite nice. I have it on my the Pine Tab, and it's so cool.
You can tell we like this.
Yeah. I know it's just an if keyboard is attached, turn on desktop mode, but I don't know. It's so cool.
Super. Yeah, I think we can move on a bit, right?
Yep.
Next question from IXSVF. Wonderful username. I don't know what it means. You reports plans to make Ubuntu Touch use upstream projects as much as possible, specifically after move to Focal, ? Are we going to use as much as possible upstream or not?
Well, yes, in some certain sense. The indicators are an example, because those have been switched from the old indicators maintained by us over to Ayatana indicators as an example. So there are certain things that are being created by others that we are more and more relying on. But it probably depends on what the user or what the person asking here is basically suggesting in the sense that what we could rely on. because we are trying to ease the maintenance for ourselves as much as possible. We can't maintain the whole thing all by ourselves as easily, and we would like to have some weight um, basically put off of our shoulders instead of taking on more and more work. So this is one way that things are specifically using other components, other upstreams in Ubuntu Touch.
And I read this question two ways. Either is, do you want to follow upstream more closely and not patch an older version, or use different components? And I think Alfred answered the one of using different components. So I will take the second one, and I think Mir is a good example for this. We already have some patches on top of Mir, and we are still running Mir 1.8.2. This is something we would like to move on to Mir 2.0 as fast as possible, but it has been hindered a bit of lack of development time, basically. We would like to do it yesterday, but in reality, I hope to get it done before the focal release. I'm pretty sure the first focal release won't have Mir 1.8, but at least we would have experimental versions ready pretty soon, so we can start testing. And on this topic, I actually started moving Mir oil code into QtMir to easily move over to have everything inside one code base. Like we can develop it and move all the QtMir code over to Mir oil while it's in the source tree. And then once we are done, we could then just remove Mir oil from QtMir and link it against Mir oil in Mir 2.0.
I know what you mean here, but perhaps you should explain what Mir oil is.
Right. So Mir oil is basically taking some of the libraries that depended on Mir server from QtMir and moving them over to Mir itself, and then linking it to the internal Mir server. Because in newer version of Mir server was removed from public library. It's only internal inside Mir. So that's why Mir oil is kind of a bridge between some of the missing components from Mir al, which is a Mir abstraction layer, which is a layer on top of Mir again. There is a complicated tree here, but when you look at it, it's not that complicated. But it is time to move over, and sure, it does work. A lot of the work has been done by Alan himself, and also from Erlen, which has been amazing. And it works. It starts, but it still needs the integration, the cleanup, and actually testing and all that. And also, I got a question here. I might need to explain what QtMir is. So QtMir is a Qt-based compositor for Mir, but as QtMir has grown, it has also grown into more of a application manager, session manager, workspace manager. So at this point, it's not only QtMir anymore, but before we took it over, this happened. So it just grew. The idea for a long time has been to decouple it, but again, development time.
Great. I'm really glad that I don't have to drink every time the word Mir is being called in the session, because I would be already so drunk now. Oh boy. But yeah, it's really, I think what I take away from it is that with the help of you, Alan, and your team, and on our side with all the efforts, we really can stick with all the goodness that we have from that whole technology stack in our operating system, versus what we would have to do is if we would have to look for alternatives. we would probably face much more challenges. And now it's also a good example of cooperation across some of, how to say, usage boundaries, because you officially are not supporting the phone stack anymore, but you are supporting other kind of embedded or confined applications like these billboards that you showed when you were here the first time. And maybe you can say a few words about what Mir is currently used for. My English is sometimes a little bit weird today. Besides that, we are consuming it for the phone, because I think we can remind people that this is something that is a wider topic than just in the Ubuntu Touch niche as it is now.
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to follow it up in detail, there's a mirserver.io website that contains quite a lot of documentation about what's going on with Mir. But from Canonical's commercial interest, the main thing that is doing is working in the embedded space for screens on process control machinery. It's used for, two companies are using it to drive smart mirrors, exercise mirrors, for example. It's being used in a postal pickup system in Turkey, I believe, where you come along and enter a code onto a screen and it unlocks the locker for your packages. It's, anywhere you're driving a screen, Mir can do that.
Nice, nice. What about cars? Would you have an Ubuntu car system? Wasn't that already on the plate at some point? I'm just thinking now.
I know there are talks with people in the automotive space, but if they're using Mir, they haven't talked to me about it.
So no.
No, that's not true. I
No?
have more than once wondered why something's happening and then discovered we actually have a customer out there.
Ah, okay, I see. Now that would be interesting maybe, because Mir in a car paired with an Ubuntu Touch phone also running Mir, that would be awesome, all right?
Near all the things.
Mir
Mir
all,
oil.
all the things, not
Mir
all the
oil.
things, all the things. Mir fuel comes after Mir oil. I perfectly get it, yeah.
Mir
All right.
gasoline.
Maybe we need something green.
Yeah,
Mir
it must be sustainable these days. It's true. Yeah, we cannot have mere gasoline anymore. That's not working out very well. So while we are talking about fueling stuff, maybe we should run our sponsors, as it's the middle of the show, basically. We always thank our main sponsors, Smooth Waller Pine 64. And there is a lot of people contributing to us as Patreons. And again, I'm feeling sorry because I didn't pull the latest list of Patreons. So please, even if I cannot shout you out by name, thank you all the Patreons that donating each month to us. Thanks all the other donators. If you want to contribute or donate, contribute with money or donate to us and the UbiWords Foundation, then please just go to ubiwords.com/donate. And you will find the ways that you can lose your money to us. We will be very grateful for that. Thank you for your support. And yeah, there is a second part in this question that we probably also give to Marius. What are your thoughts on how to improve Lumiri development in terms of new features and UI enhancements? Do you think that once it's on Debian, the contribution into Lumiri may rise up? Good question.
Actually, I will start with the second one. Do you think that Debian repository, inclusion in Debian will make the contribution rise? Immediately, no, I don't think so. I think the reason why we bring it into Debian is to move it across to, for example, Ubuntu and others. But also the fact that Mir uses some Mir. I put Mir stuck in my brain. Debian uses some time to actually release stuff, which means that it would be stuck in unstable for a long time, and I don't think that immediately would rise the contribution level because if it's unstable. It's more of the effect that happens around it being in Debian, that it syncs across different distribution automatically, like Ubuntu, Pop! OS, all these other derivatives, and at the same time also Ubuntu need to release one which also includes Lumiri, because not that many runs the devil or development versions of Ubuntu. It's mostly developers that maybe test stuff out, but in my opinion, where contribution really comes in it when people start actually using it and finding out that, oh, this is broken, this is annoying me, I need to fix it. I think that is more or less the driving factor in a lot of Linux components, and yeah, but to sum up my question, no, I don't think it automatically will do that immediately, but when the derivatives start releasing with Lumiri, most likely yes. And what are your thoughts on how to improve the Lumiri development in terms of features and UI enchantments? So this is also a hard question to answer. First of all, I think that the way to improve Lumiri is actually getting into a usable state on desktop, and actually getting people excited, getting people to start playing around with it, using it. And again, then I think the snowball effect comes in place when people start using it. They start hacking around with it and start getting familiar with it. And once you're familiar with it, it's easier to develop on it and get into it. The thing with Lumiri is that it's so different from other desktop environment in the way that it works. It has a lot of different ideas that no other desktop environment has, even though it's starting to get more and more, what should I say, popular to do it the way that Lumiri does it, with having a single compositor instead of X11, for example, with Wayland, and how the session is starting. For example, it uses System D, which is starting to get more popular, and stuff like that only really happened in Lumiri before, but now it starts doing it in more mainstream desktop environment. And yeah, but again, it's hard to get into Lumiri development, and that coming from someone that has been pretty deep into the development. But
I think there's a bit more to be said there. Current problem I see with getting into Lumiri development is that it runs on a phone.
Yeah.
And that's very much unlike the development environment anyone is used to. And it makes it very hard to try anything because there are so many hurdles just to get your code compiled and running for the device it's embedded on. Having it on a more or less standard desktop computer is going to make it much easier for people to pick it up and just play with it.
yeah, I exactly. It's really hard to. Well, it's not really hard, but it's a struggle to get in. A lot of pre-preparation that has to be done to compile to a phone, to deploy it to a phone, to know even the different compositor routes, because it doesn't use the standard Linux graphical pipe. It uses the through Android, and that adds another complexity with droid hybrids and all these. So I think getting into desktop is definitely going to ease that pre setup, because the pre setup is usually where people drop up and say, forget it, it's too hard to get into. But if we can remove as much of that as possible and make it a lot easier to test and deploy and try out.
Yeah, great. I mean, we are fully positive that we can have more contributions, of course. And indeed, in fact, I think not specifically for Lumiri, but overall the Ubuntu Touch platform, there were still a lot of contributions coming our way, even maybe small ones over the last years, where we can always have more, but on the other hand, it's still manageable to work with a few people that are giving regular contributions, and they just came out of nowhere. Somebody suddenly creating a PR on something, and I think, oh, cool. They want to fix that. And sometimes I feel it's sometimes hard to get the people motivated to do more or more complex contributions. So the first step is sometimes done by fixing something small, as you said. There is a small annoyance maybe. And then you would have to work deeper into the code base and understand everything to contribute more complex things. Getting the people maybe getting aware of that and trying to interact with the people and trying to help them, getting more and more deeply involved would be nice. Unfortunately, maybe not everybody has time to do this all the time. But let's be positive. There is actually just few things saying here within a comment on the live stream. He's agreeing with Alan, this Lumiri or even Ubuntu Touch on a standard desktop would be open the door to a lot of possibilities. Yeah, sure. I mean, Alfred already did the PDK, so where you want to go with that?
But also, I want to also mention that we also need to let's not forget our roots. Basically, we are developing mobile operating system as our main goal, and we would like to keep it that way too. So we don't completely shift the focus over to desktop. But of course, desktop would open up the door for more development to mobile. So it is a win-win situation, but we also need to balance it so we don't lose the development time on phone.
Yeah, sure. I'm already seeing us more being a mobile distro than a mobile porters community, but yeah, that's what we have to do actually if we want to go forward. So being a full-blown desktop plus mobile distro might overload us too much, at least for the next years. Yes, Alfred?
Yeah, that actually ties into the way that many people in the community think, and we are actually providing a platform here. Compared to just some kind of flavor or distribution or whatever that is just providing what people are used to. This is something completely different. The technology that we're using, what we inherited from Canonical, this has been thought out in a specific way for phone use cases, which means that certain things are there because expectations on applications are like set compared to, oh, you have this desktop and you just run a KDE application or a GTK application on a different desktop, and it just is basically the same. This is more like having a more refined desktop, mobile, tablet stack that is its own beast. It is a platform. I'm not saying it's its own OS, because the definition of an operating system is very hard to pinpoint. It means something different for many people, but it is something that is more similar to an Android experience. It's more similar to an iOS experience, rather than just being something that is repackaged software that is just available and following, quote unquote, the norm, which is interesting. I mean, for example, the fact that we have applications with trust prompts and other features that we rely on that provide a certain user experience that we like to provide. This is something very, quote unquote, different compared to what others provide. And I do think that, yeah.
That's something that's different from the traditional desktop,
Yeah,
but
right.
it's something that's becoming more and more prevalent with containerized applications such as Flatpaks and Snaps, and with immutable systems.
Yeah.
And it's something that you're already there, and the rest of the world is following.
Right.
I think this is something we cannot repeat often enough. That the vision that Canonical laid was really something that, well, at this time when it came up, it was on iOS basically, and maybe a little bit on Android with those things. But the vision is still going strong, because now people even on a desktop realize how important it is for security, for maintainability, for scaling up things, to containerize and to confine stuff so that it cannot just grow all over the place and you get something that is a mashup of everything that's installed ever on this PC. And I really hate old PCs, because normally they are just full with stuff that you don't need. You cannot really easily get an idea. And then also, if you're upgrading, you're forced to, I don't know, make it in a very unique way, an atomic way. Everything needs to be upgraded if you upgrade certain parts of the operating system. They don't let you mix and match those things. Anyways, I think the vision to have apps installed in a format, be it a click and snap or flatpak or whatsoever, into a base operating system that is completely confined, read-only, immutable, and secured against certain things is great. Yeah? And we would have this on the desktop, we wouldn't have other problems, specifically in the business world, where we still in my company see how much we struggle with security, with penetration problems, with updates. Every 3 days I get an emergency upgrade. Yeah? Not to mention that I'm working for a company that is mainly developing on Windows. Lately, they started to explore the Linux space actually a bit. So yeah, the vision is really strong. It's just that most people don't understand it properly. They always understand, oh, this is Ubuntu on a phone, yeah, and we have to maybe communicate this still better. This is not your Ubuntu desktop on your phone. It cannot be, and it shouldn't be. And we don't want to be it like that in the future. We will not drive it. We will not go there. Yeah? We want to have something different, and we like it as it is. And yeah, everybody has to decide if this is the right model for them. Yeah?
There have been people, for example, in the Jingpad community, which basically provides a different view on Lumiri and Ubuntu Touch, the tablet/desktop use case, where people started out as being confused about why is the root file system read only. It's telling people that certain things have been. It's like this idea. There have been people sitting for hours, weeks, months, who thought about this, and when you basically compare it to the traditional computing space, it is unfamiliar, but it does have a reason, and it's a very profound reason, even so. So it ties everything in: the user experience, the technology stack, and the fact that you can have applications sitting on top of the operating system, which is not following the traditional Linux space, because basically on a traditional Linux desktop, the applications and the system are somewhat intertwined, and this is different. It's sometimes not as easily understandable for those who are not familiar with, but I do think it's worth mentioning it every now and then, because we, as Florian said, we would like to keep it that way. And there are reasons for it being that way. And it does have its benefits. And for those things that are quote unquote, let's say, traditional, more going the traditional way, we have solutions like Libertine still. So you get the best of both worlds.
So are we the Apple of the Linux space, as Fuse Team supposes to see it? We have a platform, the rest follow. I think that's too much of, how to say, we're not as bold as to be Apple of the Linux space. But yeah.
We are the orange of the years.
We are the orange of the Linux space. That's good. We're pretty orange of the Linux space.
Yeah. I think the biggest difference is that Apple makes its money selling hardware.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely correct. Yeah. I have to push a little bit because we are running already to the end of the show. There are still a few questions that we might want to answer. One is that the new Mir version in U2004 UT version, what benefits will this change bring? Performance improvements, new features, just anything that comes to your mind?
Sorry, I guess that was aimed at me, but I am not sure what new Mir version is being referred to here.
Marius, what are we going to install?
Okay, so I think he probably means 2.0. But to answer the first question, there is that probably not. Focal will probably still be on 1.8.2, just to keep the deltas between focal and Xenial smaller than necessary. So we don't make the deltas too big and make ourselves a huge bug squashing thing to do. So
It's a bug squashing
that's what I was
operation.
meaning. I wasn't expecting a change to Mir.
Yeah, that question is a little bit tricky, yeah.
But the question is probably, will Mir 2.0 or 2.8,
Something.
is it 0.8 now, bring any performance improvements, Alan?
I would expect some. I think most of the performance improvements we had in Mir actually were around Mir 1.6, 1.7, and we've tested and made sure we haven't regressed, but there's not been a focus on performance since that period. It's more a matter of bugs fixes, support for additional Wayland protocols, better support for different platforms, graphic stacks that it's running on top of. So that's been the focus since then. So once you start using Wayland clients, you will find there's a lot fewer bugs to deal with than there were in the 1.8 code base.
That's exactly what we want to have, less bugs. Will it work on the... Sorry?
I will buy it.
Will it work on the Raspberry Pi 4? When we have the new
Mir. It does work on the Raspberry Pi 4. Sorry, yeah, Mir does work on the Raspberry Pi 4.
We have some specific problem with UT on the Raspberry Pi 4. I forgot about it, but there was something in our Raspberry subforums that...
That's because of the older Mir we used. But as long as Mir supports it, Lumiri should support it. There's no... There shouldn't be any restriction on hardware. The only restriction is NVIDIA, but now NVIDIA is not using GL Stream anymore, so I think that has been solved.
Yeah. I know that some applications have a problem with EGL on the Pi 4 on Ubuntu, and GLES is a bit better.
All those questions are from Ori88. Thank you for these very interesting questions. There is one more. How much of the progress that we made in Xenial still, like all the goodness from Alfred and Alberto and other contributors, and even a few small things that I did, how much of this progress can be ported on 2004 base?
Pretty much all of them.
Pretty much all of them, I would say. And I would say that we deserve it that we try to take this with us. Because to be honest, we cannot risk telling Alfred that it cannot work on 24 anymore, because everything you did on Xenial is fine, but now we drop it.
It lasted for some time. What's fun then?
Yeah.
No. I have to mention that the 24 base, it's not the software stack on top of the base. It's more or less the same as we have been going towards on Xenial. So it is the same that we are going for Sensory FW, we are going for Blue Droid, all these binder based. So all the work that we have done on Xenial is basically building upon 2004 and stuff like Marty did with porting Media Hub to Qt. That especially is going to be really nice on 2004, and that's already in as a default thing.
Yeah, so I think also that some of the repositories where we do frequent changes, they are in a good shape from their upstream, if they have an upstream. Some of the things that we just have under our authority, of course, there we have also no real big deals. I was really thinking we should maybe look into how we deal with Ophono a bit, because now the new Ophono is still the downstream of a downstream for us, basically. And I had a conversation. We're trying, actually, this is a good example of what we talked about before, also with contributing to the upstream. Lionel is working on cell broadcast, actually, and we came to the point that Ophono already supports cell broadcast, meaning getting emergency messages on your phone from the local authorities in some case something happens. We just have to tie it into the UI and making a push notification or a notification on top of it and making some UI to configure it. So Ophono basically supports cell broadcast, but it didn't support all the channels. And then I saw it's just missing a digit. Instead of 9,999, the range was only 999. So probably somebody just dropped the 9. And then I was talking with guys from Sailfish OS and said, should I actually put this into the Mare upstream? Because Mare has this Ophono and they are consuming it from there and we're consuming it from Sailfish. Yeah. And then the answer was, nah, put it in our repository as a PR. They're always so slow at Mare. Yeah? So the problem really for the phone platform is also, while you have an upstream that you want to contribute to, and it would be the right thing to do, sometimes those upstreams, they are slow accepting PRs. They might look for other goals. They might not be so interested in our things. Maybe don't even need the cell broadcast working for them. It's just a courtesy that they would accept this for us and review it, and it's a burden maybe. So it takes time, and you want to solve your problem already. Meaning again, we put it as a patch here, and maybe the upstream accepts it later or not. I see sometimes that we are forced to be slower than we could be, and that annoys us a bit. But still, we should try putting those into the original code base and not just in ours, and not fork too much, because it makes maintenance a nightmare at the end. Yeah.
But I have to mention that I'm actually quite proud that we managed to reduce these own downstream patch things to pretty much just a phone at this point. There are some cherry picks for bug fixes and stuff, but those are all pushed upstream and is following upstream, either following Ubuntu upstream or following the actual upstream, and that also reduced the maintenance on our end, because it's actually just following upstream. With upstream, I mean either Ubuntu upstream or upstream.
All right, by the way, this was the detail for the Raspberry Pi 4. Tiled rendering not yet working. No idea. That's not my business.
That is a mere bug. I'm not sure if that's fixed, that we can actually get tiled rendering. I know James was working on that.
Let's see after 2.0, as 2.x, shall we? We put it as a sticky note on our boards. Test Raspberry Pi 4 after Mir 2.0 or 2.x has been integrated properly.
I mean, you could install my super test hacky branch that actually has Mir 2.0 working and see if it works on your.
Very good. Another edge channel. I can smell it already.
Well, this is not. This is so edge that you probably fall off.
At the edge of the edge.
This is edge of the edge. This is literally a plank outside of the edge.
There are also some porting specific questions. One that I want to put up now, and I just lost it. How much work will it bring in for porters to move to 2004? Poof, that's a good one.
There are certain things that have changed indeed between Xenial and the way, for example, files are overlaid on top of the root file system compared to how it is done in Focal. There's a much more flexible way of doing it nowadays, or in Focal specifically, because we need some way of giving device-specific configuration, shipping it along with the root file system, and have it take priority. There are different approaches to this, either overlaying them as part of the installation process or overlaying them during the boot up of the phone or tablets. This has changed a bit. It also changed the way that people are debugging the ports. So there is actually now the ability to use either SSH or ADB using USB mode D from Sailfish. And there are certain things that have moved over, but that we had to move over. Rajanan did a lot of work there regarding that, making sure that this works in a systemd based scenario compared to Upstart. And porters might need to readjust a bit, but not too much, because it's still familiar enough that you get the idea. It's just adapting to a new new type of layer here, the system layer, as systemd likes to call it, which has changed. So it's just the adaptation on top of that you need to be aware of as a porter.
All right. Last question from Ruben, actually. What is the plan to make Halium source to build non-GSI system images for Halium 10 and 11? Is not quite satisfied with the lips to bind mount. It's not a good solution. If we can make a system image for our device instead of using a generic image, will be solve a lot of issues. I think you can make an individual image also for Halium 10 and 11. Can't
Right.
you?
Yeah, that's very much possible. And for example, for Halium 9, the Pixel 3a is one of the few devices that does not use the generic approach. Simply for the fact, because of the fact that we needed something that has a recovery that can be ported using quote unquote finished components. Google being the ones implementing it first, and we are building on top of that, was giving us an advantage. We did not have recovery images for generic builds before we had it for the specific ones. And I can imagine that there is a way to do it with Halium 10, 11, etc. as well. You just need the device tree set up instead of using the generic Halium device. But it does the generic approach, and I actually get a specific problem here. The generic approach implies that the vendor partition is perfect, which is not it's not the case every time. Not for every vendor, not for every phone. There are certain differences in behavior. For example, the 32-bit to 64-bit conversions for audio during calls that caused muting and volume changes not to work, which can be fixed in specific device ports, but not easily on generic ones. It's going to take. It's probably going to take a while until our, let's call it, porting upstream Android Halium gets adapted to be 64-bit only, and then those types of issues are not they don't really matter anymore. But for the time being, there are certain things to consider here, and I would like to see how this could work out. But having played around with both the specific device ports and the generic ones, I see the benefit for both types of ports. It just depends on luck, basically. You need to be lucky at having a vendor partition that is as bug-free as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't look into that so much. I stopped porting at Halium 9 at the moment, and my current Halium 10 device, by the way, this wonderful Shift phone, no making any advertisement here, um, was mostly ported by my wonderful now friend of Shift, Alex, and I just did a few pieces and that's it. So I was really porting lazily on that one. Never mind, there will be a day where I can also hopefully look into a newer Halium 11 or even 12 when it comes around. So we're a little bit over time. Famous last words. If you want to add something, please go for it. If you want to advertise for something, also now is the way. Are you feeling satisfied with the state of where we're going with how to say this convergence idea in terms of we are still driving that into that direction that we originally wanted to have it. Like there is a wireless desktop, there is external display support, there is apps changing the modes. Is this something we should still go for, or is it already boring?
This is great. You can't just get rid of it now that it's so good.
Now that it's working, we just cancel it for 24.
Okay, I'm bored. I actually think it's working out pretty well, and this is something that many people are not giving the vision of Ubuntu Touch much credit for here. This is a personal opinion, of course, but I do think that the idea was very much ahead of its time, and we're seeing it in other other approaches that are very similar to what Canonical thought of Ubuntu Touch, how to do the convergence thing, for example. It's not really that sophisticated as we like it, but there are certain competitors, quote unquote, the big ones, the Apple ones, that do actually provide something similar with you write application once and it works on a desktop and it works on a tablet without doing much of modifications, having the UI, basically the UI toolkits be the same API, but surface it differently depending on the device that it's running on. It's not completely the same as we see it, or as Canonical first introduced it to the Ubuntu community. But I do think that, and I have actually on Twitter, I have applauded Canonical for being that ahead of the curve, so to say. Because this is something I use now daily. I use it professionally. I use a tablet, laptop combination at work, compiling software, writing software, and I think, hey, this is nice, and I like it. So I appreciate it very much, personally.
Speaking about that, I actually use Lumiri on this laptop.
Wow.
Very
Doing
cool.
mental things.
So, Alan, are we still on the right track? Do you think we're doing it right as you planned it originally?
I was only a small part of the plans originally. I think it's a vision that's still worth pursuing. It's just disappointing that you don't have the resources to pursue it a bit harder. But that's not your fault.
Right.
That's unfortunately true. Yeah, so there is a call for developers on nearly all of the Q&As. And of course, if anybody out there is interested in what we are doing, we can also have another banner for that. Contribute to Ubuntu Touch. Oh, it only says that. I'm sorry. I thought there were some links inside. So yeah, if you want to contribute because you got curious what we're talking about and maybe also contribute to all these desktop vision and stories that we could have, yes, sure, come to our place. There is basically a huge list of possibilities how you can get in touch with us. We have forums at forum.ubiports.com and forums.ubiports.com. Sorry for that. To take a peek for what kind of resources are available. There is documentation, still not that detailed and maybe not on the latest, but still very valuable. And there are a lot of Telegram channels where we're actually chatting about this and that, app development, core development, this development, and so on. So yeah, hopefully somebody gets motivated to take a look. There is also another call that I want to do now before we are running out of time. We are actually looking for a nice host for that format of Q&A to make it more frequent and not just when Alfred and me just feel lucky and say, let's do another Q&A now, shall we? If you feel inspired to cast a Q&A show like this for 1 hour once a month, for example, then please ping us and we will make an assessment with you and put you under the spotlight or let it try you out for one time. It's also easy. There's nothing much involved. Get us some questions from the community, get us some people joining the Q&A and motivate them to talk about anything. Like I pulled Marius in forcefully this time.
Against my will.
Yes. He's my prisoner. That's why he wears the orange suit today. Anyway.
Actually, it's advertisement.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. So, thanks, guys.
Number one fan right there.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Was a pleasure to talk with you this week. Yeah, I hope our listeners are still there. I can still see that there are over 30 people on the live stream. Very well done. You set it out until the last minute, listening to our voices. And yeah, there will be more Q&As coming, as we said last time, or last time already. Not every 2 weeks, not once a month, but just when we call for it. And it might be again in some weeks. Who knows? Keep an eye on the forum. Yeah, be well. Take care of yourself. And see you soon, hopefully. Yeah. And that's the end of this show.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.